So
I'm back.
that this
Boy, I'm getting
will
tired of
be more like
warnings.
the 4-year minimum than the monitor minimum when you look back at minimums as far as the length of it. But I think we will be colder.
Well, and it's like we talked about this a couple weeks ago, I believe, on one of our last hangouts, that this cycle that we're getting ready to go into, cycle 25, is the prelude to this, and we're going to see harsher. Well, what we've been saying all along is we're going to see harsher winters here coming up very soon, and over time, as we get into this next solar cycle, that snow line will build up eventually over time, where it's building up for the mini ice age.
Right. I mean, there's snowing in there's skiing in California with the snow they got. They've never skied in California in July. July the 4th on ski slopes in California. Never happened in history.
Ouch. Well, the real reason I started this video is because I want to explain. I have two theories why the sun will turn black as sackcloth. First of all, as explained in the Bible. This is my second theory on the matter. The first theory I have is that our solar system, which is currently traveling through what the scientists call the local fluff cloud. Imagine our solar system has a diameter of approximately, I don't know, I just throw a guesstimate out there, a half a light year. It's the edge of our photosphere. That's just my guesstimate, but space isn't perfectly empty. There are particles and atoms out there like hydrogen and dust. And we are traveling through what scientists say is a local fluff cloud. That is, it's a very the dust and particles and atoms are low. By inference, I draw this inference from that. This is my personal opinion, that means there are areas of space that are much emptier, and also that there are areas of space that are much more dense in dust and particles and atoms, such as hydrogen and water and oxygen and, particles. As with any dust cloud, there are areas of higher density and areas of lower density. And my theory was we would move into an area of higher density, much higher. It's quite possible that we could move into a tiny little, which would be cosmically tiny or galactically tiny, but it would last 7 years for us. That would be one way that the sun would go dim, very dim. And maybe it's both. Our sun is going to sleep. We're heading into a minimum cycle of solar activity. The dire predictions that I'm seeing are saying that it's going to go into a very low cycle of activity. Very low. And one of the that's one of my theories, by the way. Let's go with the dust cloud. And the second theory is this is a coronal hole. What is the corona of our sun? Before I go any further, I want to explain that. The corona of our sun, as I understand it, is the atmosphere of the sun. And it's kind of amusing and amazing to me that our sun actually has stratified layers in the atmosphere of our sun. But the coronal hole is where there is an atmosphere, lack of atmosphere of the sun. And this is a coronal hole. Now this is seen at a certain light wave. I mean, if you, by the way, don't look at the sun, but if you could look at the sun, it would just look like a consistent ball of light. By the way, that's how what famous guy, Leonardo da Vinci, used to look at the sun all the time, and he started noting the sunspots. He went blind. Don't do that. But this is a giant coronal hole. It makes our sun look like it went bald. But see the little dots of light up there? Now, the Bible says the sun will become black as sackcloth. What is sackcloth? Have you ever handled burlap? Have you ever stuck a burlap sack up to your face? It has holes in it. You can actually kind of see through it if you stick it right on your face and look through it. And so you can actually still see light. Well, you can look at this and see that, okay, that looks like sackcloth. Now what if our whole star started looking like that? Now, the warning about this is when the sun's corona, its atmosphere, actually prevents high energy particles from escaping at high velocity. And or let's just say the particulate level from the sun goes way, way down. If our whole star didn't have a corona, or if by some weird miracle our star sucked in, well, to us it'd be a miracle, sucked in its corona or blew its corona off somehow. I can imagine there are mathematical models that would show that. Then the whole star would look like that, that is a huge portion of our star that doesn't have a corona. You'll notice that if you watch these videos, that the particulate levels go way up when we are faced with a coronal hole, which, by the way, is not to be confused with let's go to the suspicious observer. I'm almost done with this video. This was very, very informative. Let's go down to suspicious observer. He does. Let's just go to this one. I think he mentions it.
It ain't no lie, baby. Bye.
Advertisement. Skip. All right.
It's been having major trouble since the solar flare. Obviously.
See, here comes a coronal hole
anyway,
from yesterday.
If anyone hasn't clicked what is space weather up at the top of that page, it's time you...
By the way, when you see a coronal hole coming at us, you can expect the particulate levels to go up, i.e. the radiation from the sun is much more intense. And that's just a little one. Remember what I told you about the sun and it makes faces? It looks like a big old eye. Looks like serious business there. It's like, who's waking me up?
became among
I like
the
to
top
make jokes.
1% of knowledgeable solar observers on this planet in about 1 hour. Anyway, here's the last 24 hours on our star. Big coronal hole coming in on the north, bright sunspots beginning to depart on the south. They produced the solar flare 3 days ago, and now they're going to the far side of the sun for a timeout to think about what they've done. Magnetogram shows us there is nobody coming in to take his place today.
What?
Blank disc on deck. On for a timeout to think about what they've done. Magnetogram shows us there is no north, bright sunspots beginning to depart.
Sunspots. Different from a coronal hole. A sunspot is a magnetic anomaly. Well, we think of them as an anomaly. Over 4 billion years lifespan of our sun, I don't know. No man can, I don't think.
On the south. They produce...
These solar magnetic anomalies are the ones that produce our solar flares. And once they burst, that's when we get our warnings about power outages. And you may have noticed some interruption in your cell service and stuff like that. Almost invariably, our systems here on Earth, especially in the United States, are very reliable. So when you get a momentary outage from on your cell phone, or so much of our internet is now broadcast over microwaves and channels and via satellite. Once you see momentary outages of these things, you could probably just say, hey, we must have had a solar flare hit the Earth or something like that. By the way, solar flares and the particulate matter from them don't travel at the speed of light, which means if you hear about a solar flare, it takes about 2-3 days for those particulates. They're moving very, very, very fast, but they're just not the speed of light. So it's just a percentage of the speed of light. When you hear about a solar flare, it takes about 2-3 days for the particles to the high energy particles to hit the Earth, and those high energy particles interacting even with our atmosphere will cause heating. But that's different from a coronal hole. A coronal hole doesn't cause heating per se. It causes an increase in radiation, but not infrared radiation that we sense. By the way, when you are sensing heat, you're just sensing the infrared band of heat. We don't sense any other radiation. Our body, God didn't build our bodies to sense that. But anyway, that's my theories, my two theories, And maybe, and I said this earlier in this video, maybe it's both. Maybe it's both. Well, enough said. Click.